AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Welcome to Complete BS, the official podcast of couch coaches everywhere. Not just football. It's every sport that ruins your parlay, wrecks your fantasy week, and still brings you back for more. Buzzer beaters, blown leads, and brackets in flames. Yeah, we're all over it. Unfiltered takes, armchair analysis, and enough bold opinions to fill a playbook. Hosted by Brien Schmuck, sports junkie, the Saban of stats and your official voice of, I could coach better than that. Let's go.
Welcome, Couch Coach Nation. Before we dive into today's takes, I want to address something real. Last week, my I've Got Questions comment posted on social media and it blew up. Not because it was a brilliant take, but because it was negative. The algorithm loves infighting and it rewards chaos. And for me, that's not okay. In a world full of division, we should be using sports to connect, not tear each other down. You can say your favorite James Bond is Daniel Craig and nobody calls you a clown or bats an eye. But if you like a different offensive scheme or you question a team's scheduling, you're getting treated like you insulted someone's entire family. This is why Couch Coach Nation exists. It's not just a fan group, it's a standard. We don't do aliases, we don't do personal attacks, we debate and we don't destroy. We respect the game and each other. Because as men, if we can't talk sports without tearing each other apart, what does that say about the future of how we can connect at all? If you're here to elevate the conversation, you're in the right place. If you're here for cheap shots, there's 1,000 corners of the internet that are all for you. This isn't one of them. But now let's get to the games. Let's talk some football. For me, the best game of the day was Kansas State, Utah. You can always count on the Big 12 to deliver some drama and fireworks. Kansas State rushed for 472 yards and did not win. Over 1,100 yards of offense in the game. Utah got the win 51-47. The weekend was a bit of a letdown overall, I think, and it's to be expected with the slate of games that we had, but this was the first weekend of the season where I thought there wasn't a whole lot of interest from a team perspective. There were some great individual performances, but as a team, it was a blowout weekend. There were only two games where a top 25 team was playing that was decided by less than 10 points. The Kansas State-Utah game that I mentioned, and TCU's upset of Houston. Even Wisconsin's upset of Illinois was a 17-point win. Next week, we've got all the rivalries. We'll get clarification on the Lane Kiffin saga, and I'm sure next Sunday we'll have a bunch of coaches getting fired. AV, what do you think about the weekend we just had?
Yeah, you wrapped it up pretty good. I mean, there were some decent games. We all enjoy watching them. I watched it from beginning to end all weekend, but I lacked a little bit of drama. The Kansas State game was an excellent watch. That was back and forth. I don't know that a team's ever rushed for 472 yards and lost. It's probably happened, but I can't imagine too often. The Pittsburgh Georgia Tech game was a good one to watch at the end of the night. That had some funky plays. Just for pure comedy, the Florida State NC State game was probably worth watching on a Friday night when it's the only thing on. But yeah, it lacked drama, but individual performances, some things are starting to clear up for championship game matchups, getting ready for rivalry weekend. So, it was a good November weekend.
So we'll start with Tennessee, Florida. Tennessee won 31-11. This game was over before it started. With as many injuries as UF had going in, how in the world was this a 3.5-point spread? Vegas is usually spot on, but I thought from the get-go that this spread was off, and it certainly was. Tennessee outgained the Gators 323-110 in the first half and had 19 first downs. Tennessee found the end zone on their first 4 drives. It was 28-0, and UF had only run 12 plays. UF was totally outclassed, and the sooner that they realize their next head coach is either Jed Fish or Alex Golish, the better the Gators will be and they can move forward. Lane's not coming. AB, what do you got?
I'm not so sure Lane's not coming, but we'll see. I don't know where they turn if he doesn't. We talked about the lack of drama in the weekend, and this was one of those that it was just, like you said, over when it started. But I will say that I found something interesting in this game, and I don't know if it's a sign of bigger things or not. But so Tennessee was up 28-0 at the time, right? And they're going in at the end of half. They get the ball down inside the 10-yard line with like 20-something seconds and a timeout. He runs the ball twice, calls the timeout with 5 seconds, and kicks it. Like, he literally played for a field goal at the end of the half, quite clearly taking his foot off the gas. And then they didn't score again in the second half. It's 31-11. That ain't what you want to see from a head coach. And I don't know what's behind that. Maybe I'm making too much of it, but that was odd. And, they lost to Georgia when they were up big. Did they lack killer instinct? It was odd, but the game was over. It didn't have any bearing on the game. I'm just saying it's something to keep an eye on in the future.
Also, Saturday night, we got Pitt 42, Georgia Tech 28. Georgia Tech, all they had to do was win the game, and they're in the ACC championship game. That didn't happen, and they're out. Georgia Tech, were they ever really in this game? Because it didn't seem so. This was 28-0, 8 plays into the second quarter. Similar to that Florida game, Pitt went up 14-0, and Georgia Tech threw a pick deep in their own territory. 4 plays later, it's 21-0 Pitt before the end of the first quarter. Georgia Tech tried to climb back. They got 2 touchdowns, cutting the lead in half in the third quarter, but as they're driving to cut the lead to 1 score, Haynes King throws a pick 6, and now it's a 21-point deficit at 35-14. 2 fourth quarter touchdowns by Tech made it a 1-score game, but as soon as they scored, Pitt responded with a 56-yard touchdown pass to cap the game off for a 14-point win for Pitt. The ACC championship game now, Virginia, they beat Virginia Tech, they're in. SMU, they beat Cal, they're in, and it's Virginia SMU. Those are both very winnable games, and it seems like that's going to be your ACC championship game now. Virginia SMU, things can get crazy if there's some losses here, but Georgia Tech, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah, and a couple of things stood out to me in that is Georgia Tech's defense has been garbage all year, and although they did get some stops when they were trying to get back into the game, which I credit them for, Heschel was 17 of 22, very efficient. He barely had any incompletions. Pitt's running back ran the ball for over 200 yards. They ran as a team just under because of sacks, but overall they did whatever they wanted. Georgia Tech came back. They would. They're a scrappy team. Haynes King is really good, but credit to Pitt for that pick 6 because they pressured him and he just let it go without really looking, and that was due to the pressure. But another problem is Haynes King had twice as many carries as their next running back, and that happens a lot, and I just don't think that's a good recipe over the course of an entire season to win out. And as good as Haynes King is, and you want the ball in his hands as much as possible, that just doesn't seem like the way to get it done. But a missed opportunity for Georgia Tech. I think this is their best opportunity to go to the ACC championship game for the foreseeable future, but we'll see how Brent Key does without Haynes King. Maybe he'll prove us all wrong.
Absolutely. And midday, Oregon 42, USC 27. Early in the game, the two teams, they swapped touchdowns, but in the second quarter, USC punted to Malik Benson, and he took it 85 yards for a punt return touchdown. The second quarter interception thrown by USC, for me, was the defining play of the game. They had traded shots, but the combo of that punt return and now the interception to give Oregon the ball with a short field, they went up 28-14 with a touchdown, a 2-touchdown lead. From there, every time USC scored to cut the deficit to 1 score, Oregon answered with a touchdown. It's baffling to me how Lincoln Riley cannot get over this road-ranked opponent hump. Mekhi Lemon, great player. He didn't have the yards, but he did have 2 touchdown receptions, and he threw a touchdown pass. Oregon's tight end, Kenyon Sadiq, he's going to make a lot of money in the NFL. 6 catches, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the rushing combo of Noah Whittington, 104 yards and a touchdown, and Jordan Davidson, 50 yards and a touchdown, was a big difference since USC couldn't run the ball, and Oregon was able to keep the USC offense off the field. AV, what did you see in this game?
Yeah, the same thing as you. I think the combination of the punt return interception turned the game. They were going back and forth, matching each other up until that point, and then it becomes a 2-score lead, and USC could just never get over that hump. They got to do within 1 score, then they go go back to 2 scores. And so, not a lot of drama at the end of that game either. But who's making themselves some money this year quietly is Will Stein, because Dante Moore is playing really good ball, and that's not an accident. He coaches quarterbacks, and he's doing a good job with Dante Moore, and that offense is becoming, with Whittington running the ball and Dante Moore and the play calling, that offense is becoming very formidable. And, their defense is always going to be good with Lanning there. So they weren't impressive early in the year, the first few games, but they're rounding into shape at the right time. I think Oregon's going to be a team to watch in the playoffs.
And to your point about Will Stein, he's only 34 or 35 years old, but it's not just this year with Dante Moore. In today's world of college football and the transfer portal, he's showing a track record of getting it done. He did it with Bo Nix, who was a transfer, and Bo played better than he had played in his college career, and he goes on and is a first-round draft choice in the NFL. Then Dylan Gabriel transfers in, and he put Dylan Gabriel at another level for Gabriel to get drafted. Now enter Dante Moore this year, and he's doing it again. 3 different quarterbacks. If you're able to get that done and do it with players out of the transfer portal and be able to continue to elevate them and change over your roster and find the best player that's going to suit you, you're going to go a lot of places. You're going to win a lot of games. And Will Stein's definitely making a name for himself and making a lot of money in what he's going to be able to have as a head coach, possibly in a couple of weeks. Let's hand out some game balls. AV, you got a game ball to give out?
I do, and you're not going to like it. It's your boy Arch Manning. Arch Manning's played his best game as a college quarterback probably 2 of the last 3 weeks. This week, he ran for a touchdown, threw a touchdown, and caught a touchdown. The rare trifecta. He accounted for 6 total touchdowns in their win over Arkansas. He's starting to play good ball. He came in as a 5-star quarterback with a name, didn't start last year, struggled a little bit early this year. But, if you just give him a normal progression, he could still end up being a very good college quarterback. And I think he's on that path if he doesn't have any setbacks. But this week, for sure, he earned it. Game ball to Arch Manning.
And it's not that I don't like Arch Manning. I don't like all of the expectation put on him when he hadn't done anything. He is definitely growing and progressing as the season has gone along, as you would expect a freshman to do. Next year, I would expect that he builds on that. That doesn't mean he should be a preseason Heisman favorite next year, but he could develop into a Heisman contender as the season goes along, in my opinion. Game balls, my first game ball, I've got 2 of them. I'm going to go with LJ Martin, running back from BYU. This guy went on the road at Cincinnati. Not an easy place to play, and totaled 32 carries, 222 yards at 6.9 yards per carry, had 2 touchdowns, added 3 catches and 44 yards. This was a huge win for BYU to stay in the mix for the Big 12 championship game and a rematch with Texas Tech, possibly still in the hunt for the college football playoffs. And then we've got Deuce Knight, quarterback at Auburn, making his first career start. True freshman, 5-star recruit. I get it, they're playing Mercer, but 15 of 20 in your first start, 239 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. But wait, there's more. He added 9 carries, 162 yards on the ground, and 4 more touchdowns. Welcome to college football. Deuce Knight, 401 total yards of offense, 6 touchdowns. We'll see you at the Iron Bowl. I've got questions. AV, do you have a question for anybody?
Yeah, I've got questions. This might sound a little weird because I'm going to question someone who is highly regarded as one of the top, maybe attainable coaching prospects on the carousel this year, and that's Eli Drinkwitz. So Eli lost yesterday to Oklahoma. And by the way, Bo Friz was back. And when I saw his injury and his foot was like pointing the wrong way, I thought there was no way he'd be back this year. So shout out to him for toughing it out and coming back and playing his heart out. But Missouri wins games, and they win a decent amount of games, and they've actually beaten Ohio State in a bowl game. But if you look back at that, that was an opt-out game, and they had someone you've never heard of playing quarterback. But they don't beat good teams. They don't beat ranked teams ever. So last year and this year, they're 0-4 against ranked teams, like 0-10 or so against combined the 2 years against ranked teams that finished the season ranked. Last year, they didn't beat a top 25 team or a team that had 7 wins or more. Their best win last year was against Oklahoma, who was 6-6. Against SEC teams who finished the year with an above 500 SEC record. He's 0-15. So I think there's a little bit of fool's gold there with Eli. I think he beats who he's supposed to, which is a high floor, but I think he's reached the ceiling. Here's the funny thing is he might be the leading candidate to replace James Franklin at Penn State, and he is James Franklin. It's really weird. Like, he wins games he's supposed to. He doesn't beat ranked teams. That's what they fired James Franklin for. And if they hire Eli Drinkwitz, I would have questions for them too. But my questions today are, Eli, are you really a good coach, or are you an average coach to just get average results stacked on top of each other? I don't know. Maybe he'll prove me wrong.
I hear you there. I've got questions for the SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey and all the SEC athletic directors. Can we stop with the November cupcakes? November's about turkey and stuffing, not cupcakes. It's an embarrassment. You're moving to a 9-game conference schedule next year in 2026. Teams still have to play one game that's against a Power 4 team. That leaves you 2 other games where they have to schedule somebody, and it's likely a cupcake. And while I don't love it, I understand. I don't fault you for scheduling cupcakes at some point in the season. I question the placement of where they're at. And that's where I think Sankey and the SEC need to put a rule in place that you can't schedule any non-P4 games in November. Any non-Power 4 games have to be August, September, or October. This allows for your traditional rivalries like Clemson, South Carolina, that are interconference games. They're against a Power 4 team to still be a traditional rivalry during rivalry weekend. But then we don't have games the second to last week of November against Samford, Charlotte, Eastern Illinois, Mercer, Coastal Carolina, and Western Kentucky. SEC, you can do better. Play your cupcakes, get it out of the way in the early part of the season. November is for real football. That's the meat of your schedule. It's Thanksgiving, it's turkey time. Let's get to it. You can do better. You can follow the Complete BS Pod on X and Instagram, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to Complete BS. Be sure to subscribe, share, and follow us online. And tell us what you think of this episode. Use hashtag CouchCoachNation, and let's keep the conversation going.
This podcast is sponsored by Goldbelly, shipping America's most iconic foods nationwide. Make this Thanksgiving one to remember with the original turducken, the viral pie cakin with decadent layers of cake and pie, and more. Plus, Black Friday is the perfect time to pre-order unique gifts they'll rave about for years. Use promo code GIFT for 20% off your first order on Goldbelly.com. Goldbelly, America's best foods delivered